This
Cheer.
conference will now be recorded.
Sam, let me come in here a second.
Sure.
There's a number of other people here from that are from Florida Makes, and there are some of our vendor friends. So I think we'll come back to that and move on. But I think everyone knows that if they look at the list, most everyone is online. You can see who is here, and we can send out a list of attendees in case people don't get to say hello. A few other folks from the colleges logged in after you got past their college. So I think essence of time, we'll go ahead and move on to Kevin's presentation. He's gonna, no, not Kevin's not first. Henry Mack is first. Is
Yeah,
he?
Henry Mack, right.
Let's see,
Yes,
did
good morning, everyone. Thank you
Great.
for the time today. And first of all, I just wanted to thank you, Marilyn, as well as Kevin and Zoraida, for all that you have done and are doing to advance the cause and interest and expansion in CTE generally, but also with respect to engineering, technology, advanced manufacturing, et cetera, and the disciplines and the items and topics we're here to talk about today. I also wanted to, I guess, maybe offer a general thanks to everyone on the call for all that you're doing to sort of pivot and innovate and iterate and move to remote instruction for your CTE programs generally, but also the programs that we're addressing and looking at and thinking through today. It's really nothing short of heroic, at least from my vantage point, to keep learning going and to keep it engaging as well as of high quality. I think it matters now more than ever, really, to emphasize the value of CTE generally speaking, if only and primarily to think about how what we do on an everyday basis in the education of students in career and technical education can play a role in economic recovery, stability, and even growth as we think about the future. So just again, broad, open remarks, and abundant thanks to Marilyn, Kevin, and Zoraida, and everyone else on the call today. So maybe I have a few slides to present, at least from my vantage point, and then I think we'll pivot to Kevin. And then Kevin, if you don't mind, it might be worth pausing at the end of both of our slides to take a few questions and answers. And I don't mean to shift the agenda, Marilyn, but it might be neat to do that at the outset if that's appropriate. If not, no big deal. I don't have control over the slides, but if you can advance this, thank you so much. So just a little bit about what I intend to talk about, background on me, an overview of the CTE audit, and some general comments about the future of workforce ed, and brief slides on some educator resources that we have going during this COVID-19 emergency. Next slide, please. So I came to the department in November by way of Broward College, serving as the vice president for workforce education at Broward College, and prior to that as an associate dean, and prior to that, and along with those positions, as a philosophy professor at Florida International University, and holding a reoccurring appointment at the University of Miami teaching philosophical theology and religious studies. And so I recognize my place as principally a humanist and not a CTE guru, but it's through my positions at Broward College that I came to love career and technical education and everything that sort of it affords students by way of meaningful and engaging and life-changing careers. And so it's through the opportunity really that CTE provides that I kind of like fell again in love with all things related to CTE and understanding the broader impact that can have on the state economy, as well as, again, individual and personal well-being. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about the audit and provide some general comments about the future of workforce education, again, from the vantage point of the Department of Education. So we know that Florida's economy is changing rapidly. And some of these stats I acquired before the COVID-19 emergency, which presents an interesting challenge, I think, for CTE, generally speaking, but also for engineering, technology, and manufacturing, et cetera. We know that our GDP, at least prior to COVID, was among the top 20 in the world, with 21.8 million residents here in the state, with a projected 26 to 27 by 2030. That means about 900 a day were coming into the state of Florida. And these numbers will change in light of the COVID emergency. Of the 900, interestingly enough, about half were coming from places outside of the country, which is just interesting to think about in terms of alignment to curriculum and how we're sort of adjusting to meet market demand and how that sort of affects curriculum discussions, generally speaking. Altogether needing 1.5 million net new jobs by 2030 to meet the demand, but over the past 5 weeks, this number is a bit off. Over the past 5 weeks, we have about 600,000 plus claims for reemployment assistance made to the Department of Economic Opportunity here in Tallahassee. And while the February unemployment rate was about 2.8%, with 300,000 jobless Floridians out of about 10.4 million, we know that that is going to change. And I believe it's today that the new numbers will be released in light of the COVID crisis. Next slide, please. It's with this in mind that the department, namely it's with the aim of meeting the demands of the future of work and getting the Florida economy as well as the Florida educational system to be #1 in workforce ed by 2030, that Governor DeSantis issued his executive order last year to commission the Department of Education to conduct a CTE audit. That is to say, an inventory assessment of all of its career and technical education programs. And we began that process last year and completed the first phase of the audit this past January. We are in the second phase of the audit by soliciting local review data to better inform the picture that was painted at the statewide level. And it's really looking at all of our programs from two perspectives. One, are they meeting market demand? And how are we capturing that accurately? And two, are they performing? You know, are they graduating students at a reasonable rate? Are they enrolling them? What are they getting by way of a job? And is the job aligned to the program that they paid to get the credential from? And what is the salary like for them? And so aggregating and analyzing all of this data will paint a really robust picture of the landscape, the CTE landscape for the state of Florida, if only and primarily to help inform policy and figuring out resources for the recruitment and the support and the buttressing of career and technical education across the state. Next slide, please. The audit itself analyzed about 1,200 programs, and sort of here's the breakdown of at least the statewide review, phase 1, 500 of which underwent benchmarking. 169 were removed from analysis because they had already been daggered for deletion. Daggered for deletion just means that they've been identified as not having any enrollment for the past 2 or 3 years. 139 new programs were removed from the benchmarking process because there's just simply not enough data. And you can see the breakdown of the rest. It is our intent next year to incorporate industry certifications and licensure programs and develop a robust methodology for ROI for the system too. Next slide, please. All of those programs after the benchmarking process happened fell into one of these 4 buckets. Again, this is sort of the first phase here at the statewide level. And you can see sort of how we, again, triage them out into these quadrants. Thankfully, the system evidenced high performance with nearly 70% of programs meeting statewide benchmarks, both at the secondary and post-secondary level. The ones that we are somewhat concerned about, again, are in the bottom left-hand quadrant. those programs that require both review for institutional performance and do not appear to be meeting market demand. But again, with local templates and local review occurring, this picture will naturally change. Next slide, please. So again, as we think about the future of workforce education and the audit being an essential feature of this, these were our priorities prior to COVID, and to some extent still stand as the Department of Education's priorities for the upcoming year, even 2 years. Figuring out innovative ways to help expand access, improving success rates for our adult ed students, and interestingly enough, trying to figure out ways to connect adult education to in-demand career certificate or technical certificate.
No, it's in honor of him.
I think someone might need to mute themselves. We are also trying to figure out how to couple, as to my point, adult education programs with post-secondary credit courses, and that's just something I think this group might be willing to think through as we move forward. It's just an additional funnel or population that you can add to your enrollment funnel by way of trying to figure out how to upskill, reskill, or train our adult ed population in and around engineering, technology, advanced technology, manufacturing, et cetera. We serve about 200,000 adult ed students statewide, with nearly 1.4 million adult education students needing still a high school diploma to get access to the kind of degrees and programs that everyone here certainly provides. We want to try to expand and enhance apprenticeship still. Senate Bill 1568 was sort of the department's omnibus bill. It did not pass, and we will try again anew this legislative session, but it is still our intent to sort of help figure out innovative ways to expand and enhance apprenticeship programs across the state, as well as invest in entrepreneurship and explore the possibility of micro-credentialing and being committed as a thought partner with you all. Next slide, please. Just some interesting thoughts about the future of manufacturing, engineering, and advanced technology across the state. Again, this is pre-COVID, and I understand numbers are changing and outlooks are changing, and Kevin is probably better equipped to speak to this than I am. But for the state itself, you know, around 220,000 projected jobs available through 2030, with about 300,000 jobs statewide, with key sub-baccalaureate opportunities really in machinists, electronics, industrial machinery, mechanics, and maintenance and repair, and targeted, again, advanced technology positions in those following. And so I'm sort of really just interested, next slide, please, how the Department of Education can play a supportive and complementary role to what you all are doing, either by way of committing resources or advocating for resources, together with myself and Chancellor Hebda from the college system and Chancellor Oliva from the K-12 system. And we sit very proximate or close to Chancellor Kreiser from the state university system. Sort of what does the department's role look like anew with Florida Makes and FLATE and everyone sort of coming together to reimagine the vision and the aims of CTE, generally speaking, but also the disciplines and the programs that you help sort of shepherd and oversee within engineering, technology, advanced technology, manufacturing, et cetera. So I just wanted to give a shout out to FACTE, the Florida Association of Career and Technical Education, that supports both secondary and post-secondary CTE. They're compiling a lot of resources for the field. Next slide, please. During this time of emergency, a lot of just helpful documents that are here, and this slide will be shared or emailed after the presentation so that you can click on these links since they are active. Next slide, please. And if there are any questions, it'd be great for you just to take a peek at the fldoe.org website or to email my office at any point. Please feel free to do so. Really looking forward to next steps and you know, conversations with you all And again, can't thank Marilyn and Kevin and the group enough for the invitation to me. And again, extending my openness to helping you do what you need to do to expand and continue to enroll and to provide the kind of talent the Florida economy needs, especially during this time as we anticipate recovery, re-engagement, and growth. So I think, Marilyn, that concludes my comments. Kick it to Kevin.
Thank you so much, Henry. We do have, we could take 1 or 2 questions if anyone has a question right now.
I have a quick question. This is Allison Heil at Pasco Hernando. You mentioned as far as industry certifications, that's something that we had started down that road and was ramping up with many of our CTE programs, but COVID hit and students can't take tests. We're trying to find alternatives with different programs that allow, whether it's on site, but some of the industry certs require hands-on type assessments rather than just a computer. Mm-hmm. Has there been any discussion as to, there's going to be a decline this year? How can, what's any suggestions, comments? Regarding the industry certifications and the need that we know the workplace wants them, but how are we going to meet that need if with COVID and we can't have them come on campus to test?
Yes. So
any suggestions?
we about 2 or 3 days ago, I issued a formal memo to the K-12 system about working with our certifying agencies, so the partners that are providing the industry certification examinations, working with them to ensure that there is a remote strategy in place to enable at-home testing. And we got over the hurdle for the K-12 system, allowing at-home testing to occur for industry certifications if they met about 5 criteria. Currently working through a solution with Chancellor Hepta for the college system. In the interim, you are still permitted to allow students to come to campus for in-person training or in-person assessments, so long as they meet the CDC guidelines of no more than.
And right now we can't. We're under no students on campus.
So that would be that obviously authority rests with the college president, him or herself, as well as the superintendent, him or herself.
So that's for, so if we have those blocks that students can't come on campus. I know I said on a webinar for CompTIA the other day as far as what they're working through on the IT side, but on this side, for example, our welding program, if we have students that need to come on campus to show that they can weld, that's difficult for the manufacturing piece. Same thing with some of the engineering side. So.
No, understood.
That's kind of we're hitting those blocks. So if students can't come to campus and there's not that computer assisted, because if you have a computer where you're just going online, because we even had for aviation, we've been in talks with the FAA and we have workarounds with that.
Right.
But manufacturing and engineering, we're kind of stuck.
And
so that's I'm all ears.
Some colleges I know they're creating a pretty innovative schedule that would allow the students back on campus, again, under CDC guidelines. But if it's the decision that the entire campus is closed to everyone, there really isn't an immediate solution that comes to mind, except for trying to, at least with industry certification, is trying to explore remote at-home testing to the greatest extent possible. I know CWE and CIA have been getting together to triage out specific instructional, techniques or questions. But again, it sort of is varying as a function of the college. Allison, remind me, what college are you from?
PHSC, Pasco Hernando.
Okay. I'll try my best, but I really appreciate the comment.
All right, this is Santa Magellani. I just want to make sure those of you who have just come on that you mute your mic before we take the next question, because I'm hearing a lot of background feedback here, so make sure that you do have your mics muted. Okay, go ahead with the next question.
An India
Now,
Paul, Daytona State
let's go
College.
ahead. Okay, good. This will be the last question and then we'll move on. So let's answer it quickly if we can. Thanks.
Okay, an India Paul, Daytona State College. I have a question regarding the bullet that you talked about, aid in coupling of adult education programs. Can you explain on that? Is there a Department of Education guideline as to what kind of credits we can take?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm looking to develop a toolkit for what we're calling just concurrent enrollment strategies, right? For students that are enrolled in adult education, adult general education, adult basic education, and how those monies through WIOA Title II can support concurrent enrollment in CTE programs of study, either short-term career certificate programs or industry certification preparation classes, et cetera. So the department itself will be issuing a toolkit around what that looks like, specifically for state colleges, for you to think through, again, possibly expanding your at least initial enrollment funnel into some targeted CTE programs, but drawing on the adult ed population, right? I don't know if that answered your question, except for the fact that more information is coming on that.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
All right. So let's
Did Kevin, is
yeah, go
Kevin
ahead.
on? Is Kevin
I am.
available?
Can you hear me?
Do we need to, can we?
Hello?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
it, Kevin.
All right.
This is Kevin's first slide. Kevin Carr from Florida Makes. Everybody else should be muted.
Is that it, Marilyn? Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes,
Kevin.
yes.
Go ahead.
I was waiting for the theme song, but I guess there's no theme song.
Well, we'll work on that.
Well, it's great to be able to join all of you today. I know I've participated, I think the last time with the ET Forum was back at St. Pete College in Clearwater. You guys know better than I do how long ago that was, but we were at the time sort of introducing the possibility of an idea that really was focused on how do we at the time keep FLATE alive. As most of you know, FLATE has been on sort of a with respect to the National Science Foundation grant, has been on sort of a glide path towards its conclusion, which Marilyn and Richard have managed to extend well past the typical life. And I think that speaks volumes about how successful they were and the need for NSF to keep FLATE going. I think about 4 years ago, when we first started Florida Makes 5 years ago, Phil Santosi, who's on this call, had given me access and introduced me to FLATE, and I attended a couple of their board meetings, and I saw this issue of, how does the organization wrestle with succession beyond the NSF grant? And we had just opened up what is I'm getting an echo on myself. We had just opened up what's known nationally as a Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center in Florida. And for those of you who don't know, an MEP Center is part of a larger program that's managed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is an agency of the Department of Commerce. And these MEP centers have been around now for 31 years. They were signed actually into law by Ronald Reagan. And they have operated in every state and in Puerto Rico throughout that time. And there was a previous MEP center in Florida that got itself into a little bit of hot water and was shut down, and they recompeted in 2015. And we came in, we being a partnership of all the regional manufacturing associations across the state, and we created a new one with the title Florida Makes. And so you can see here from the slide, our mission is really, it's kind of like, pretty much like agricultural extension, which most people in the state know as IFAS. But the real role is to go out there and work with small, medium-sized manufacturers and then manufacturers at large to really kind of improve the productivity and technological performance of that sector. As you remember, back in the 80s and early 90s, we were getting beat up pretty good, significant quality problems, use of technology problems, and a lot of that has improved, but you know it's ever changing, and so you're always chasing that gap of where the state of technology is. And when it comes to small, medium-sized manufacturing firms, as most of you know, their heads are down. They're trying to get all the product they need to get out the door by Friday. And so having an extension service modeled after ag extension, or at least the concept of that, where you know you go out and work with these firms and, if you will, increase some of their bandwidth on some of these technical challenges and innovations that could really help their businesses grow, advance, prosper. So that's our mission. That's how we operate. Again, we're distributed through the regional manufacturing associations. In each one of the associations, we have quote unquote field agents, business advisors that go out and touch companies one-on-one and assess where their challenges are, where maybe some of their opportunities are, and kind of focus in three principal areas. And that is technology adoption, talent development, and business growth. Our model is one where we, unlike a lot of MEP centers, we don't rely on our in-house capacity to actually deliver the solution, but we rely on a third-party network of providers. We rely on colleges such as yourself, whereas we get a company through that assessment process and we kind of hand that off and say, here's what you need. You need to go to St. Pete College. You need to get them to teach you in this. And we help create that engagement and manage that engagement, you know, from cradle to grave. So that's kind of the business we're in. That's the best analogy I can give you is IFAS. Next slide, Marilyn. So, you know, when Phil had talked to us 4 years ago and we looked at really FLATE and the power of the network that FLATE had created, and also the impact that it had in Florida on career and technical education focused on advanced manufacturing. My thoughts were initially, this can't go away. This is something that we need to keep. And I think, you know, in a lot of worlds, you know, maybe these ATs fall off the map when they end their life. But from the standpoint of the progress that's been made, the networking and collaboration that has been created, taking away a FLATE seemed like it would be a step backwards for the state. You know, this is an important part of an MEP network, that education component, particularly education component focused on the manufacturing sector. So if you were to look at the law that governs MEP, somewhere about 10 years ago, they added a couple provisions there that I got to tell you, nearly all MEPs really don't pay much attention to or engage in much activity related to. And these are these provisions I provide here on the slide that the MEP Center should be working with area career and technical schools, information about job skills, manufacturing companies. They should be promoting the expansion of certification systems through organizations such as yours, and help facilitating that training and creating and supporting new and existing apprenticeships and addressing those workforce needs and skills gaps in order to assist these firms. So we have embedded within our enabling legislation at the federal level the provision to be doing the work and engaged in the work that is carried out by a lot of your organizations and to support that work. So I began a process with Marilyn, with a number of folks to figure out how it is that we can really keep FLATE alive and perhaps transition and incorporate that within the activities and the investments that we have in Florida Makes. To give you a sense of our investment, right now we get $4.3 million a year from the federal government. We're supposed to be getting, if they catch up to their funding algorithms, we should be getting about $6.5 million a year. And so I've identified in our growth strategy back to NIST that, hey, we need this additional money because there are certain, number one on that list was the incorporation of FLATE. Rather than see it fall off a cliff, we were talking about absorbing FLATE within our base program. And that's not to wash away the FLATE title and throw it into the Florida Makes world, but rather to keep that alive as FLATE. We've been, calling it FLATE 2.0, but keep it alive as FLATE, operated and supported with funding from Florida Makes with some of those federal funds. So that was our intent. And what we tried to do over the past couple of years is we tried to introduce a couple bills at the state level that could provide some match funding for that. We haven't yet to be successful, but in the course of that work, Zoraida and I had the occasion to sit down and with Chancellor Mack, and I think in about 5 minutes the light went off in his head and said, hey, there's a way we can do this, there's a way we can support this. So that's why we're coming at you together today and to talk to you about how we're going to be proceeding forward. Next slide. So also embedded within our legislation is the idea that, and I won't hang on this one too long, but the idea that it's well within our swim lane as an MEP center, it's well within the scope of the funding that's been provided to us to be doing that. So I feel, happy that we found a path forward on this. We talked to our board more than a year ago. We gave them a prospectus on why we would like to see the incorporation of FLATE into the base funding of the MEP center, and our ideas of pursuing how we would achieve more funding with that. And they were all on board. So it's, we've been working on this. I feel like a couple of years, maybe it's longer. But again, it's a core part of the activities that we would do as part of Florida Makes. Next slide. So, there are a lot of things that were requirements that fell under the NSF funding, the strings attached to those NSF dollars that probably don't apply anymore. And so what we're in the process of doing is we're trying to rethink, what does the new FLATE 2.0 look like? How is it governed post NSF? How do we incorporate other workforce, I'll say stakeholders, key stakeholders in this? And one of the key ones being the Florida Department of Education, everything that comes under Henry Mack's span of control, I should say, or authority over. We've had, as part of Florida Makes, we've had an Advanced Manufacturing Workforce Leadership Council, which we've collaborated on with CareerSource for the past couple of years, where we've pulled manufacturers from all over the state to help sort of guide and provide some business intelligence on, where some of the workforce education, some of the CareerSource dollars really need to be positioned. And we're all pretty well aware of what our current needs are, but there was a lot of focus on and and really driven a lot by CareerSource on, you know, what are the things that are needed for the next couple of years. So that council was put together as more or less a business intelligence function. And in our prospectus to our board, we said, well, we bring FLATE over rather than having the NSF National Visiting Committee, which had people from within the state, but also people from outside the state. We'll just bring that in underneath the leadership council in terms of governance. But as Henry and I look at how we could partner together and explore things together, we need to also look at the composition of that board. We have, how do we incorporate the Florida Department of Education at that table? One of the things that we're exploring, and I'm not even sure I'm supposed to be talking about this or not, Henry, but I will, and you can holler at me later. But we've been exploring an investment by the Department of Education that remains to be vetted throughout the department that looks at how they may make an investment in a partnership with us on you know, the new FLATE and reorganizing, reconstituting FLATE over the next 3 years. And so as we do that, what I would like and hope to see is if we can even get the chancellor himself to join our board. We haven't talked about this formally, so I don't know if I'm surprising him. He's on my slides. But to have him join that board and really sort of begin to pull that thread of formal technical credential education, probably from K through, 4 years as it relates to manufacturing, pull that thread within the directing forces of what we're doing at Florida Makes, what we're doing with that federal investment, and how we can all collectively, as we bring this community together, begin to look at other sources of investment in those resources, in that ecosystem that's really focused on the health and welfare of Florida manufacturing. And again, the career and technical education component, your ET programs that you conduct are an integral part of that. So to me, this is a natural synergy of bringing the two organizations together. To me, this massively expands the touch and the impact of all those investments by adding, to that network of regional associations, that network of partner organizations that we have now, the community college system, which is really the foundation of where most of our manufacturing workforce gains and expands their competencies. Next slide. A lot of what we do, and this is a little bit redundant, a lot of what we're doing in general is focused on having a sector strategy around manufacturing. And when you do that, you do pull together that ecosystem. A person that you may see on the screen, because she has been on the camera the whole time, is Zoraida Valesco, who within our shop, she's our Vice President of External Affairs, has been gathering over the past 2 years the manufacturing ecosystem once a year under the banner of Make More, which I would call a movement/conference, where we're taking all those stakeholders, educators, private sector, industry, suppliers, and all the stakeholders across the state that feel like they've got a piece of this manufacturing, and bringing them in the room and trying to create a cohesive strategy for how we're going to be a dominant state in manufacturing, which I believe we actually can be. This is modeled after looking at states like South Carolina that 25 years ago said, hey, we're going to go after automotive. And now today they produce more cars than Detroit. So our purpose in trying to connect all of these dots is not the sort of world, but rather to have some cohesive, coordinated network, which represents our manufacturing ecosystem that yields the best companies, the best workforce and the highest outputs, not just of all the states. As Henry said, we're the 17th largest economy. So we can compete with the states, but our target really needs to be worldwide. Our goal is on June 1st, which I didn't put on this slide, but in June 1st, we will officially transition Maryland and the staff over to the Florida Makes payroll. We will begin to transition all the materials, back office, web pages, things like that, over to our platform, if you can call us a platform, so that we have sort of a almost seamless continuation of FLATE as it ends and sunsets its NSF funding and really kind of shifts over to the base funding that we get from NIST. I can tell you that both the folks at the National Institute of Standards Technology and the folks at the National Science Foundation have been watching this as a model that maybe should be considered in 50 other states. And again, I'm including Puerto Rico, the 50 other states that also have that enabling legislation, that also have those assets within their states, but they haven't really stepped that much closer between an MEP center and the community college system. So we're being watched. I know there's even a case study that's being developed or has been developed up at MIT School of Public Policy on the synergy between career source. I think we're doing the right thing if people are studying us, and if we're doing the wrong thing, we'll get that press too, I guess. So that's going to be our approach. Hopefully for your world, one day will change to the next. June 1st will come and FLATE will continue on as you know it. Hopefully over the next couple months and the next couple years, we will create some greater synergies between the marketplace and your technical programs and what we're learning out there as we touch a lot of companies. And hopefully the FLATE 2.0 will just really be an expansion of the value, the capabilities, and the impacts of what you guys have experienced with FLATE over the past 16 years. Next slide. As Henry and I, and again, we're still iterating on a scope of work that would support the funding that would come from the Department of Education to support this. It has some major goals and objectives that we would like to see that are, in fact, in alignment with a lot of what FLATE does. And then there's a little bit more that's been added to that. DOE is particularly interested in the work that we do with prospective students prior to ET programs. So what does our pipeline look like? How do we get more students, more young citizens involved in manufacturing as a career? What do we need to do to help with parents and educators that are involved in influencing that pipeline? Another key area that we're going to be covered under this agreement is professional development. As all of you know, a lot of the guidance counselors and teachers and educators that are pre-CTE or pre-4-year school know very, very little about manufacturing as a career or a discipline. And if they do, they know very, very, their perceptions tend to be pretty old. And so we want some element of what we're doing to focus on professional development of middle and high school educators and even post-secondary educators. What are the camps that folks like you need? I know we had a manufacturer who's on our board in Tampa who actually had one of the educators from the local CTE program there who actually comes in and works the summer in their shop. And that's how he sort of hones his skills and keeps current with what he's teaching students from September to July. So there may be programs like that we can expand on. opportunities for educators, educational opportunities for educators. Next slide. ET Forum, I don't need to explain to you guys, you know, one of the things that lit me up the most about the will and the want to do this was seeing how you guys, all your different institutions collaborate, and the value of that collaboration, not only in sharing best practice, but in the development and articulation of new programs, the transferability of the interinstitutional transferability of some of these programs. And I think that's something that is well within of our mission, to make sure, help facilitate the continuation of that. The next bullet really speaks to business intelligence, maintaining a current and future understanding of the requirements of the sector, where those skills gaps are. And that's really why the Advanced Manufacturing Leadership Forum came in, and that's really where even the career source interest is. And all those interests, from you know the MEP to career source to the ET world and the FLATE world, I think are all well served, one by collaboration, but two, focusing on the same gaps and identifying how to close some of those gaps. And so I think that's going to be an important part of the FLATE function, is really the gathering and articulation of a lot of that business intelligence. Next slide. Curriculum development and accreditation. I mean, the core work of Marilyn and Richard in helping to develop with educational institutions those career pathways and those credentials that are stackable in the progression of all of your programs. That even is becoming more and more important as we begin to look at, outside of CTE, we begin to look at the role of apprenticeships and how those apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships become on-ramps to programs like yours. That's going to become more and more important, that the credentialing, the transferability, the stackability of those educational experiences fall back towards the students. And finally, one that Henry added here is support for student organizations, and making those connections between those organizations to manufacturing, advanced technology experts, helping them to coordinate events, assisting them with connectivity with employers. And that's where, as you begin to look at this whole circle of life here, we have a strong connectivity through the association to the employers, to many of those owner managers of those companies, and to provide resource support. Again, this is all part of that ecosystem that, you know, my perception was Florida always, when I came here, I said, man, it's got some of the greatest assets in the world that don't seem to really talk to each other. I saw that spirit with the ET Forum and FLATE as an example of groups that are talking to each other, but there's still a lot of other component players and parts of that ecosystem that we need to bring closer to the work and the mission of each of our organizations. Next slide. So next step, we're going to work and formalize our agreement between the Department of Education and Florida Makes. Again, we're targeting June 1st. I thought maybe that would slip, and even sort of offered that sort of, are we going to slip on this way out to Henry? And he goes, nope, we're going to hit June 1st. So we're on track to do that, absent any surprises. We're on track to transition the staff over on that date. And then once we get some of those papers in place, there's two real important things we need to do is then focus on exactly what the governance structure should look like. And again, within that structure, to ensure that your community is adequately represented at that table. And then finally, to lay out and develop a 3-year operating plan. What you see here are some broad goals and objectives. What we're going to have to do is get down to specific deliverables, specific measurables of what we expect to get out of this over the next 1 year, but also over the next 3 years. And I think that's all I have, Marilyn. I apologize, I went a little bit longer, but I think it's kind of important that everybody get a sense of where this is going, because we're not touching each other as much anymore. You know, these things are happening in spite of our shelter at home sort of work strategies right now. And I'm happy to report that the progress towards this June 1st goal is continuing.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. We can, Bob, we're gonna put you on hold just a couple minutes and see if we can take a couple questions. We have all the questions. We'll try to address those afterwards if need be. But let's see who's got something they want.
I do. This is Sam Ajlani from College of Central Florida. You had mentioned that you wanted to get more awareness for manufacturing, and now moving FLATE under. FLATE's always been the leader in pushing manufacturing days and kind of taking it over in the state of Florida, which has been great. Also providing training for the high school level and junior high school level instructors. Is that going to be a big part of what they do? I mean, are we going to be able to see more of that, or maybe an expanded portion of that?
Hopefully we'll be able to see more of that, you know. And those are the things that you're talking about, Sam, where I couldn't imagine it going off a cliff, you know, because
Right.
the NSF funds ended, because they really truly serve our mission. And I know Maryland has worked very closely with regional manufacturing associations on things like Manufacturing Day and pulling that off. So no, I'm hoping what we're doing here is taking and institutionalizing FLATE versus from, I'll say, from a program to part of our sort of permanent infrastructure. And I say that with all kinds of hopeful wishes, knowing that there are MEP centers out there that are operating now for 31 years. I think MEP is going to be part of the fabric, and this, by incorporating FLATE in there, ensures the continuity and growth of FLATE.
Okay, thank you. Is there?
I don't know if Henry's still on, but Henry, did you want to add anything to what I was talking about with our agreement? I don't know if he's still there.
No, I'm still here. I'm excited by the prospect, as you had mentioned, sort of still working through the exact proposal and vetting it internally here with the commissioner and the other stakeholders here at the Department of Education, such as Chancellor Hebda, Chancellor Oliva from the K-12 system. But to your point, you know, within 3 to 5 minutes of us talking, the kind of synergy and opportunity that exists to align and to provide a one-stop shop, if you will, a convener, a connector, a collaborator, a resource for all of these disciplines statewide, coupled to sort of industry itself in the ways that Florida makes that possible, you know, is sort of a no-brainer in my mind. It's something that I'm happy to stand behind and champion. So I'm looking forward to next steps as we think through this.
Okay, any additional questions? Thank you, Henry, for that. Anyone else have another quick question before we go on to Bob Levens?
I have a question.
Can you say who you are and introduce yourself and ask your question?
This is Paul Wilder from Valencia College, and on one of the slides you had a little bit about perhaps program development and certifications, and I'm just curious about have you got to the point of logistics in terms of how that would work in terms of support, and would institutions be reaching out to you as a resource for that, or how does that all work?
I don't know that we've gotten to the point of exactly how all that will work. I think that's the challenge ahead of us in terms of how we do that. And then we're hoping that as we figure things like that out, we won't be doing it in a vacuum, but we will be working with institutions such as yours to kind of inform the best pathway that we would move forward on that. Marilyn, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think that's one of the roles that we've played in this state. Sometimes the message isn't gotten to all corners of engineering technology, but we've helped a number of programs set up their either ET degree to develop new certifications and college credit certificates, new specializations, rewriting the frameworks every 3 years with the Department of Ed's support. So it's a role that we've played, sometimes alone, sometimes with just one college, but then using the ET Forum to connect other colleges that were interested in that same area of study, if that was to call it that, or aspect of engineering technology. So it's kind of something we've already been doing closely in partnership with Bob Levins and Eric Owens in the Department of Ed. So you can call us about those things anytime.
Yeah, this is Sam Ajlani. Not only that, but like our manufacturing association has modified their, I guess, their purpose, and we've added in logistics and supply chain versus just strictly saying manufacturing. We incorporated in ours, and I'm about to incorporate what James McDonald and you guys have done at Valencia into my program with the, the supply chain technician, specialization. We're moving that direction because we're heavy supply chain logistics in our area now. So we modified what we did, including the manufacturing association. So they need to be on board as well.
See, let's try maybe one more quick question. Anyone? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to Bob. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I noted that you had 81 participants. I wondered if you had an ET forum in person that was that populated.
No, I think that's our highest number. We had 84 at one moment in time, but now people get off and on. So we're pretty excited about that. I think 70 was our highest number in the past. So
thank you all, and I look forward to partnering with all of you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Marilyn, this is Zoraida. If I may just for a minute, let Tina Berger has a really important announcement to make that we literally just found out while Kevin was his presentation. Tina, are you there? Tina, you're muted if you're trying to talk. I think maybe Tina, you're still muted. Let me see.
She may need to go to the settings at the top and unmute herself. That's what I had to do, especially on the camera and such.
I just sent her an unmute request.
Okay.
She's unmuted now. Tina, are you there?
She's asking you to announce.
Yeah, in the chat, she say, would you announce it for her, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So we just received notice from Ted Norman, the State Director of Apprenticeships, that the Florida Make sponsored apprenticeship has been approved. So this will, I mean, she can probably talk more about it, and maybe Kevin, you can make a comment, but it's an online program that's going to be available statewide. And we've been working closely with TED and the Advanced Workforce Leadership Council and Career Source Florida to make this happen for quite a while. So it's a great accomplishment for the industry.
Does this fit in with the IRAP? Is that what you're saying? Or what is this one? I'm confused at which one this is.
Yes, It fits in as, I believe it fits in as an IRAP. Again, Tina's the expert here, but you know, ever since they've been rolling out and pushing apprenticeships over the past couple of years, TED has been after us to be to establish a registered apprenticeship program with Florida Makes as the registrant, if you will. So we had one that we've been developing. I guess it was just signed, which will focus on online training in the CPT requirements against the MSSC skill standards.
Oh,
So
okay. This is different.
Together.
I think this one is different than the IRAP. I think the IRAP is something else.
Correct.
Yes, yes.
I can speak to this. I had a conversation with Ted just yesterday. Somebody needs to mute. No, I don't know. I've got echo. Well, I'll update on that next. So let's go with Bob. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Bob Blevins. I'm State Supervisor for Manufacturing, Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics, Engineering, and Technology Education for those of you I have not met. Again, we do seem like we have a large crowd, which we usually don't have in person. So Marilyn, if you could just go to the next slide.
I'm gonna. I should have told you all the presenters earlier. There's a delay in the when you say next slide. It's taking a little while for them to come up.
That's understandable. Again, as you know, if you've been in any of my presentations, I always put up a little cartoon about engineering. This is the one I used this time, protesting against new technology. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. With what we were talking about early this morning with Chancellor Mack and Kevin Carr, there's not a whole lot that I can interject here, except I'm just going to go over a few things that's specific to the ET and some of the stuff that we actually do. We're going to do the specialization updates, which I think Sam mentioned about the specialization for supply chain automation. Legislature update, that's just basically going to be on hold simply because everything is on hold because of the coronavirus. The 2020 framework reviews have been kind of pushed way back. Slight Perkins update, audit update, which Chancellor Mack did, and we'll simply end with a little update about the CAPE updates. The supply chain automation was submitted by Valencia, and it was approved, and it is added to the 2021 school year frameworks, and it is ready to roll out.
And I believe Valencia will be starting that in the fall, offering that program.
Marilyn, we're going to offer that next fall. Our engineering technology program will launch this fall. Supply chain will follow the next year.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying.
The new CCCs, this is a new medical device design manufacturing CCC. It's under the biomedical equipment technician AS degree. That has been approved and is ready to roll out. So that's in a different area, but it is manufacturing and it is in technology.
Could I ask a quick question here? Do you know how many credits that is? How many credit hours that is?
Let me see. I did have that. Hold on just a second and I will tell you because I've got another.
This is Laura Sharp. I think that's ours. I think it's 23 credits.
It's either 23 or 24. I
Yeah,
don't
we're so
remember
close to that.
Well, we hope it's 24 because you can't get approval for financial aid under 24 at our college. You know, that's the only problem with going 23.
You need to talk to your financial aid guru. For hours is 16 because it's the semester hours, not quarter hours. 24 quarter hours or 16 semester hours.
Yeah, the federal guideline is 16.
But I'm glad to hear this got approved. I didn't know it had gotten approved, so yay.
Yeah, it's already on. If you go to our website, it is already up and running on the 2021 frameworks, and it
Right,
is
right, I
28
saw that.
credits. It's actually 28 credits.
Okay,
Medical device design and manufacturing.
right, that's great.
All right, move on. Again, the manufacturing frameworks, most of those I did last year, so I only have 4 to do this year. And you will be, most of the schools that are participating in this will be receiving a invite for a go-to meeting, since most of them, well, all of them have been canceled with this face-to-face. These are my career certificate programs, which some colleges do offer, but most of them it's going to be technical colleges. And then here are the 4 AS degrees that's under review for this year. I know I had 2 of them scheduled at Daytona State, and again, unfortunately, those had to get canceled. So I will be sending out invitations for go-to meetings probably within the next 5 to 10 days, so we can get these knocked out. And again, the legislature, again, everything is up in arms with that. The governor has not signed anything about any budgets. I know he's overwhelmed with the certain situation that's going on, which nobody could foresee. So this is just a little information. We don't know what's going to happen with the budget. I know there was a lot of talk about increasing budgets for instructors, for programs. So everything to me still it's up in the air. So nobody's going to know what's going to happen. Again, a brighter future budget. This is what he was proposing. Again, we do not know what's going to happen, simply because we don't know how the budget's going to end up, where he's going to have to veto items, or he's going to add items, or he's going to keep items. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be finding out more about this. And then the Perkins 5, again, Chancellor Mack mentioned a little bit about this. The Executive Order 1931, we're currently doing the CT audits. Right now we're doing the CLNAs, and we're just waiting to see what happens with certain programs. And CAPE update. This is the CAPE rubric that because we did a complete audit on the CAPE revamp this year of secondary programs. The certification meet the definition of industry certification by the Florida statutes, the certification essential skills, competencies, which are required by the employment, like in demand in Florida. Is there independent evidence to submission for the industry certification? Assessments are in course completion only. Again, we're working right now on certain one of these that they're going to be able to do remote. So I think Chancellor Mack sent out a memo on that earlier this week. And I think one of our weekly updates, he addressed this as soon as certifying entities agree to what they want done, and then we're going to post a list of certifications that can be done remotely. Career Source sent out recommendations, bundle career professionally school districts, and again, this is secondary only. If you have any questions, there's Catherine Wheeler's, or you can contact her through industry certifications at flodoe.org, or there's her telephone number, and I know she is working from home also, because I've had several conversations with her, but she's readily available. And then this is why we're here. This is why we're doing it. Inspiring change, impacting tomorrow. You know, if you've been around me, you know I'm not a big speaker. I always like to answer questions on the side. So I think everybody has my email. Everybody has my phone number. So if you dial my phone number at work, it goes straight to my home where, I'm working from home. So don't hesitate to call me. And if there's any questions, just let me know and I'll work out anything I can do to help you. And that's pretty much it for me. Are there any questions?
Anyone have a question for Bob right now?
I have a quick one, if you don't mind.
Who is this?
This is Almir, Eastern Florida.
Sure, go ahead.
We were trying to put the IPC certification on the CAPE funding list, but the state said they're not rigorous enough.
Could you repeat that? Which certification?
IPC, soldering certification.
Oh, the soldering?
Yes.
Right. So maybe the question is what's the rigorous?
I remember looking at that one. Simply being, it's not long enough. You can, because I myself, I went through the NASA soldering course, and it took me 1 week to do it. And 1 week is not rigorous enough to be put on the CAPE list.
This is Laura Sharp. Can I interject there for a second? I'm concerned about the idea that it's being judged on how long it is and not whether it's relevant, because the thing is the companies in our area and in Mir's area are asking for these certifications. So shouldn't that be judgment more than anything else? I mean, our students can't get in the door unless they've had some kind of soldering certification. So I don't understand why that's not being kind of evaluated and weighted out as well.
Well, again, anything when we talk about certifications, I don't get into any details because that's not my area. That's why I put up Catherine Wheeler's number. She is the guru on that. So if you had any further questions on it, you could contact her about what the actual requirements are to get placed on that list. Only thing I do is I just make a recommendation based on what I look at when I look at the certification. And then they determine whether or not it meets certain criteria.
Marilyn, can you back up? Can we back up a couple of slides? Contact information? Yeah, just for just a couple back. There you go.
Yeah, there's her contact information, and she is the guru for CAPE certification.
I already talked to her several times. The problem is you're talking about 1 week, which is about 40-45 hours. Most SolidWorks classes are 3 credit for 8 contact, which is also can be taught in 1 week on an 8 to 5 basis. So I don't think the amount of hours is the issue. I agree with Laura on that.
Well, again, you'd have to, again, that'd be a Catherine Wheeler question. Like I said, I'm just a middle person.
I did talk to her. I explained it like I'm talking to you right now, and still she said it's not rigorous enough.
Because I do believe there's a 150-hour requirement, and I'm not sure. I'm not going to, so don't quote me on this, but I think that's in Florida statute.
Oh, that might be the issue. Well, maybe, I don't know exactly how to do that, but I agree with them about some of the other certifications. They got built into courses kind of at the same time, and this soldering cert is, it's been around for a while, but still is really.
I did look at the certification, and it is definitely a valid certification. It's just one I don't think they're going to be able to get it on the CAPE list. Again, if you're in electronics, yes, soldering is when I went to school, we called it bigger the glob, better the job. Well, that's not in soldering. There is definitely a technique to it, and it is something that a lot of people cannot do. It is definitely a good certification. It's just one that I don't think we're going to be able to put on the list.
Unfortunately, I disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, well, maybe there's a way to make sure that people understand that it's probably not the only certification that has those characteristics, and that maybe the defining guidelines or whatever for the CAPE list should be looked at again. That there are some places that doesn't fit. But we'll I'll keep that in mind, and maybe we can get Catherine on at our event next time or so, and let her go through some of those details, and then we can gather up all the certs we'd like to have on that list that we think are rigorous, but they say are too short, and get some companies to say that it should be they should be included. You know, we need a lot of ammunition for this, some of these policy changes. But,
actually, I would like to add also, before you do the industry cert, there's another 48 hours of soldering before that too. So if you actually count the hours, it's not just 1 week, it's 2 weeks of classes, because you have the prereq and the actual cert.
But Amir, did you present it that way? Or did you present it with just the, okay.
Oh yeah, believe me, I talked to her several times, I emailed her several times, but she just persistent about the rigorous aspects of it. It's like, I don't understand the rigorous. How rigorous is SolidWorks? I don't understand it. You tell me.
Yeah.
I mean, they gotta define rigorous in what aspect? Mathematically or moving the mouse? That's what I told her, and she didn't like that too much.
All right. Well, we need to get moving forward. So we'll take a look at this. I guess, Marilyn, do you want to either try to pursue a little bit of that, or do we really need her on the next ET forum or something?
Well, I think we need to do a little research maybe, and then we can decide about getting it going for next time if that's appropriate.
All right. Good.
So,
well, at this point, I guess we're done with Bob. Is there anything else for Bob before we release him? Okay, I guess not. So we want to talk a little bit next about some online lab discussion, get college updates. And before I do that, we do have a couple of vendors online. And I know Mark is here and Steve. Is anybody else here that is a vendor that?
Yeah, I've seen quite a few. You guys want to chime in and say hello to everyone?
Yeah, this is Ron Jaeger. I'm here. Scott Wells.
Scott Weller.
Hi, Scott.
Good morning, everybody. It's Steve at Bluegrass.
Okay.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Richard Hyatt.
All right, Richard. All right. We're glad you guys are all here. What I'd like to do before we even start, because we're talking about online lab discussion, I'll start kind of with, I'm going to start with Steve, because I think he was the first one on, or maybe Mark. I can't remember which one of you came on first, but one of you guys get started. And I think, Steve, start with you, and then we'll go to Mark, and then on down the line. And tell us, I know you guys have sent me links, and everybody's gotten a bunch of links here and there about what you guys can do for us to support us while we're online. So go ahead.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Steve at Bluegrass Educational. What we've done was our Festo Didactic has opened up their MindSite access, which has quite a bit of content. That some of it require equipment, but there's a lot of theory there. We have a whole nother section that doesn't require equipment. That's in advanced manufacturing, hydraulics, pneumatics, electrical. Get a lot of use out of that. They're also given their simulation software for till the end of June. That includes hydraulics, pneumatics, motor controls. We have electromechanical software. That's all available at no cost. In addition to that, with our NC3 certifications, they are offering some content from Festo, but also some of the other industry partners, such as Lincoln Electric, Greenlee. Train is offering their content free online for 30 days. So that's something that I think you can get quite a bit of use out of. And so if you need any assistance or any resources, just let me know. I know a lot of emails have been going out there, and it's hard to sift through them all, but we've got some good resources we can provide for you to get through this transition.
All right, thanks. Mark?
Yes, thanks, Sam. Same thing, Amatrol e-learning is available online. Access to all of Amatrol's advanced manufacturing content. And it's not page turner content. It's actually simulation and curriculum, engaging, utilizing multimedia web delivered content. Right now, there is a special price of $60 a student for Florida colleges. In addition, I can also provide free demos that will give you the same direct access to all that content for free, 20 days. And if you need another 20 days, just let me know. Just don't tell Amatrol. Obviously, we also have the CPT online coursework, and MSSC is also in the process of providing the assessments online for those students as well. So the coursework and the assessments. And Sam, my only other question for you is, you arranging to have food delivered to our homes?
No, sorry, not this time. But you guys are supposed to send me a check for that. I never got one.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's go ahead, Scotty.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Scott Weller here, Technical Training Aids. Hello, everyone. So SolidWorks for students is free as downloads. They're actually offering additional, if your license doesn't cover enough of the students through June, they're going to offer that. Stratasys, the 3D printing monster, has resources specific to the COVID-19. So STL files, if you're not already printing locally and you want information, I'll send a link to everybody on that. So if you're not already doing 3D printing and you want to locally to help, there's a lot of resources there. And of course, all that's free right now too. There's a couple other companies that we have, CEV, a lot of the secondary schools are using its multimedia content. That's also free for teachers and students. So I'm an email or a phone call away. If anybody needs specific details, just reach out. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks for having us today, Sam and everyone.
Thanks. Richard Hyatt, you there?
Hey, Sam, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, you caught me off guard on this one, and now I have to check. In the past, Lucas Nula did not have some of those free resources, although they had a good program for really discounted programs that they could all do in-house online. But at any rate, I'll have to check with that and get back to send some emails out and let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Who else was out there on the vendor list?
Hello, we have a couple of questions in the chat. John Montoya asked if we could probably make a list of free resources from the vendors for teachers. In addition, Clara Hansick is asking to introduce himself.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. This is Carl Hansick from Test Equity. Tina Brumley, our Director of Education, is on as well. Test Equity represents all of the test and measurement equipment companies that you guys know: Keysight, Tektronix, Rohde & Schwarz, Instec, and a bunch of others. And we are here. I'm here in the Orlando area near UCF. Actually attended the Seminole State one last year. We've worked with many of you, Tracy Barnes and John Montoya and John Byrne and Jeff Miller, and we're here to help you again. Again, Carl Hansick from Test Equity. We are your primary distributor, and we're very happy to help you any way we can. Thank you.
Thanks. Who else is there? I think there's one more person at least.
This is Harvey with Technical Training Aids. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Harvey, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add because I work with Scott Weller, and he pretty much listed what we have. I am in our office today printing out safety visors for the UAB hospital here. And we have several schools that are across the country that are participating. FAU is participating in it. So anyway, just what Scott was talking about with the Stratasys 3D printing deal. That's it.
All right. All the vendors, before we move forward, everybody's asking for your contact info. I think you were copied on the list. If you can reply back to the list with your contact information, that would be good. I know, Scotty, you said you're going to send out another email with some of the resources. So if all of you can do that, that would be great. So everybody gets it. And hopefully everyone is on the ET list that's in here. And if you're not, that would be good. Was there any other vendors before we start with the colleges? Okay, well, I'm going to start since I'm at College of Central Florida, Sam Ajlani. I'm the department chair for the engineering technology. I have 3 specializations under me, and I help a lot with the logistics. Almost took it over again. So the key thing for us is I did purchase a lot of simulation. Everybody knows I'm on Amatrol. That was a life-saving thing moving to online suddenly. But I also have simulations dealing with some of the labs. So if you have Logix Pro, some of the other ones, you also have, if you buy the toolkit for Allen Bradley, you have some emulate you can use that'll help you do some of the programming stuff. I know I'm using that. And I bought some special software for motors and controls a long time ago that seems to be working okay. But always looking to expand and do in this time of crisis. And I really think my philosophy has always been not just look at designs and do the calculations and theoretical, but simulate it in real world if you can, then go build it. And that's kind of the way we do at our school. So by having simulations, it's really nice to do that. And that's kind of how I've gotten around it. Let's see, let's go to Broward College. Do you have anything you want to add? I think there was somebody from Broward, wasn't there? Okay, let's go.
Sorry, I'm.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was fighting with my mute button there for a second. Just real quick update for what we're doing here at Broward. We've had an engineering technology program for quite a while, and we're just embarking on a process to sort of redesign the program. So I'd like to thank Marilyn for taking some time. Was it last week, Marilyn, or the week before? The days are all running together now. To sort of walk us through what's new and exciting in the world of the ET framework. And so we're starting that process with with the South Florida Manufacturers Association. So I'm really excited to kind of hear some of the stuff today, because that's going to help inform us with our program redesign.
All right, that's great. That's great. Let's go to Daytona State. Do you want to speak, Ron, or someone else?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the comments on the side too. So.
Yeah. How about anything you guys are doing for the online? Because of course you guys are naturally online, so I guess it's not really an issue for you guys.
We didn't really see a major change in operations in the bachelor's program. Actually, the only change that really occurred was certain classes like Calculus 2, differential equations that weren't offered online have now been forced to online offerings. We had an issue with physics before, and now that's been pushed to online operations. So we've kind of actually expanded our capability for the prerequisite courses and the mathematics courses to be able to be offered online. Everything else we've pretty much stayed. We did not. We had some live lab options that have now gone away. Now everything is completely virtualized, but we already had virtualization of our labs to start with. So we just had a change in the students that could, the students that were attending the live lab would just move to the virtual options completely.
Do you have any recommendations for the rest of us?
Well, the individual faculty that are teaching those laboratories have done a lot of work over the last years on how to do that. So they're pretty good at contacting for advice. And I can throw some, I'll put some in the comments. I'll go ahead and put their email addresses so that if anybody has some questions about how to do that, they're good people to talk to. I do also know that in the AS program, and in India might be able to help a little bit more on this, they've had to take some live offerings and look towards virtualization of those labs. And that's in the AS level classes. So he might be able to offer some information too. Kanindi, are you there?
Ron, Ron, when you add the people's names, could you specify what area they're in case people wanted to direct a had a particular issue with a particular topic or course.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's move on to Mir. Mir, what are you guys doing?
As far as
this online,
Yeah,
having to move to online.
well, the soldering classes, I said earlier, I was talking to Marilyn about that the soldering classes and the fiber optics, because the hands-on component, they're on hold, which mean all the students going to get incomplete. But the other classes, we were able to move them to online delivery. And what I did in the soldering lab is removed all the cables. So I can actually, if we reopen with a 6-foot social distancing, I can have only 7 students in the lab, which it's okay in a way, because the maximum amount of people you can have at one time is 10 at this point, not unless that changed. So 6 or 7 is not bad at all. So we can offer soldering like that if need be in the fall.
Oh, okay, great. All right, I see what you did. Frank, you got anything to add?
No, just like all of you, we certainly were looking forward to hosting the forum, and hopefully we can do it in the future. Everything that can be moved online has been moved online, and any face-to-face has to be postponed. Students will be encouraged to take an incomplete if they feel that's the best course, and make up work before the end of the fall term. We are still moving forward on apprenticeship and are working a couple grants, Florida Job Growth Grant and Pathways grants, which will enhance our ET and apprenticeship capabilities. We're appreciative of that support. And that's about it, given the limited time we have. I did want to ask if Brian Cam's on the line. He wanted to make just a couple quick comments if he can. Brian, you out there?
I didn't see him in the list, but
no, I didn't either. Yeah.
People are coming and going.
All right, we'll move on then. But
okay.
Everyone stay safe.
Thank you.
Well, he did send some updates, and those are I think those are posted, or Brad sent them around when he sent the last announcement, which might have been yesterday.
Yeah.
I think there were some updates that Brian was going to share at the forum about their apprentices, and also some of the companies that we were going to have the opportunity to visit had the ET forum been at Eastern Florida.
Okay.
I don't see him here, so we can go ahead and move on.
All right. Stacy Tenner, you still there? Stacy, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You got anything you
still
want to
here.
talk about? Go ahead. Florida A&M, guys.
Hey, y'all doing? Only thing we're doing it, and thanks for the simulation. We're using the multi-sim and LabVIEW simulator for our labs at the present, as far as delivering our labs. All of them are closed, so we don't have anything. The Ignite programs continue to working on articulation agreements with the community colleges. I believe we're up to 19 now, and we're still working on making them more associated with the AS degree coming to FAMU, making that pathway to a higher degree.
Okay, thank you. All
Thank
right,
you.
Patrick Rice, are you still there for the Florida Keys?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, give us an update of what you guys are doing.
Well, we're struggling. We are exploring virtual reality options for, a simulation for solar at least. I think we jumped into some of the Florida Shines courses, but I have a question about next week's event. Is it going to be a repeat of this event?
No, this is new topics. If you look down on the, I don't know if you got an agenda, but if you'll look, there's different topics we're going to be talking about. We couldn't put this all in one day, so we're just kind of spread it over 2 weeks.
Okay, well, so we were able to hire a new full-time faculty in engineering technology, and I'd really like to introduce him and have him on the call next week. So I'll do that, and I'm sure he's going to have some questions. And then I'll get our director for engineering technology also on the line. So we'll participate again next week. and have a chance to introduce those folks. And
all right,
that's it.
All right, let's make sure, Patrick, you get his information to Maryland, then, so they can put him on the list.
Sure.
All right, great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, let's see. I'm just going down the list of who I know is here. Doug Bauer, you guys want to talk about anything? Maybe Alan or Kevin or somebody?
Yeah, sure. This is Doug Brower at the Florida State College. And Kevin and Alan may want to jump in too at some point here. But what we've really done with all of our engineering technology is we've taken the approach that we've continued to conduct essential lab activities on the campus for students while adhering to the 10 or less people in a single occupied space, as well as the social distancing mandates that are there. Along with that, as much as possible, we've moved course content online, and I know that some of the professors have really done a good job in moving activities and things online in terms of simulation software, et cetera, things like that. Doing their own videos of how to conduct experiments and some of the lab activities. So as much as possible, they've moved everything online, but we've maintained the campus to be open for the engineering tech students to conduct, again in quotes, essential lab activities while adhering to all of the protocols to keep everybody safe and healthy. Kevin and Alan may want to jump in on this point.
This is Alan. Just a couple of resources that people might be interested in. Basically, this semester I'm teaching robotics, fluid power, and surveyed electronics. For robotics, if you haven't seen Universal Robots e-learning, it's free and it is fantastic. They have 13 modules. Students have to work through them. They get a completion and they get a certificate. 3 different certificates from Universal Robots. That's been just fantastic for robotics. And of course, I've also been using RoboDK, who was nice enough to give us a 30-day free for all of the students. And of course, if you put RoboDK on your college website, you get it free all the time. I didn't know that until this came up. And that's also been a good resource for robotics. So I'm really just taking the KUKA certification lessons that we had and adapting them into RoboDK. And I've talked to KUKA and they're okay with that. And they're going to let us offer the certification exam from what we're doing with that. So that's been good. For fluid power, I've been, Automation Studio is allowing us to use that for free until the end of the semester. So that's been a huge help for us. And also, I want to thank Steve for opening up LVVL Sim through LabVolt and being able to use that as well without having the dongles. And the last thing for survey electronics, if you haven't seen it, we've been using Tinkercad a lot. Tinkercad has a circuits module that's really good. And if you're interested in that and you email me, I have a bunch of lessons that I got actually from the last NSF conference. And also been using DC AC Labs, who has also made that free up until I think the end of July. So we've been using that as well.
Hey, Alan, is there any way you could send everybody a link on some of that you just discussed so we can go ahead and take a look at that?
Sam,
yeah,
we actually have compiled a lot of those resources FLATE has over the last few weeks, and we sent an email or two around, but again, I'll share it here. We've now put it in the Google Drive, the ET Google Drive that exists. Everything is kind of put in a category, loosely in a category. If there are multiple resources available, it says that on the, let me see if I can go there. This will go there to that Google Drive. And actually it started with Alan's list, and so those resources are on there as well, I believe. Oh, see if I can find it. Liz, can you help? What's the name of the folder?
Hello, Marilyn. I don't believe it's on the Google Drive yet. However, I will put it there. The folder should be at the very bottom.
Okay, so here it is, the 2020 Spring ET Forum virtual sessions. This folder, I guess while we're here, we'll have the presentation files from today and from next week. And also some of the items that we would have for handouts. We'll talk about some of these things next week. And then this resource file, there's quite a lengthy list of resources for the colleges. Many of them are time sensitive for this semester, some through the summer. However, I think you should be aggressive with your vendor friends, who's ever supporting the particular equipment or software that you're using, and just dig in and ask them, and maybe you'll be able to get an extension or be able to get one more thing if you need it. So I wouldn't be hesitant about asking them. And Rod and Mark and Steve and Scotty and everyone else can jump on me later, but I would just say ask, and you won't get it if you don't ask. So I encourage you to check those resources out and use them, and or even just play with them to see if it's something you might want to invest in the future for your classes. So anyway, this is a folder where it'll be at that link that's in the presentation.
All right, great. Thanks, Marilyn. I didn't realize we had all that out there.
And I think Liz is putting this in the link to this in the chat box also.
Great. Okay.
I think we should go ahead and maybe wrap up, Sam, so we can close out. Let me just jump in here and ask everyone. We do have a survey for the forum, our first virtual attempt at this. So hopefully it was good for everyone who's online and who joined us today. So please go to this Survey Monkey. It will also be, I believe Daniele might be sending this link out to everyone in a few moments. Maybe she already has. And again, the resources from today and next Friday will also be in this shared folder in this Google Drive. So please check it out. And if you can use any of those things or contact any of those companies for help, I would just ask. They're all willing and wanting to help and as much as they can. So this is the time to do that. And I also want to thank our speakers today, and from the Department of Ed, and Kevin Carr, from Florida Makes, and thank them for joining, and also thank them for hosting our event, and thank all of you. We had quite a number of folks here online today, so it was great to see that everyone's doing okay and doing their best. And stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, and thank our vendors for being here and supporting us as well. You have anything, Brad?
No, we'll be sending out some other information, an update for next Friday. And so everybody, I think, has got the agenda, and we're going to continue with the college update and then go right into some of the other presentations.
All right, thanks, Brad.
Thank you all,
everybody.
Be safe.
All right, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Yeah, have a good time. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks.